Once we start doing work in algebra, you will have to simplify expressions and solve equations constantly. The main objective of this module will be working with expressions, while the main objective of the next module will be solving equations. The first question is, what is the difference between an algebraic expression and an algebraic equation? The difference is really quite simple. An equation has an equal sign with two different values on either side of the equal sign. An expression is just one side of an equation with no equal sign. So, if I wanted to give an example of an equation would be something like x plus 3 equals 5. An expression would just be one side, for instance, x plus 3. Truthfully, another expression could just be 5. You don't see that all that often. That's not an algebraic expression. It's just an expression because it does not have a variable with it. Throughout this module and the next one, you are going to be hearing a lot of different vocabulary words having to do with algebra. So I want to take a few moments and talk about those, and although you don't need to memorize these, it would just be good if you had heard them so you have a familiarity with them. First of all, I already used the word a variable. A variable is just a letter or other symbol that stands for a number. So for instance, x, y, z, a, b, c, those are just known as variables, and they stand for numbers in algebra. A term is a single number or variable, or numbers and variables multiplied together. If I had the algebraic expression 5x plus 3, 5x plus 3 has two different terms with it. 5x is a term and 3 is a term. And it's very important that you remember that terms are separated by addition and subtraction signs. In this term, 5x, I actually also have a variable x, because it says that a term can be numbers and variables multiplied together. So I have 5 multiplied by x, but together that makes up a term. A term can also be a single number, so the number 3 is also a term. If I had something like 3y minus 2x plus z minus 4, in that particular case I have 4 different terms. 3y is a term, 2x is a term, z is a term, and 4 is a term. And once again, just remember that terms are always separated by addition or subtraction signs, and that will become very important as we progress through this module. There are 3 other terms that you will hear me talk about as well: factors, coefficients, and constants. First of all, factors. You'll notice that in this algebraic expression I have 3y subtract 2x plus 7, I have 3 different terms. One of those terms is 3y. In the term 3y, I have 2 different factors as well. 3 and y can be called factors because we are multiplying them together. But they could also be called coefficients and factors. The 3 in this particular case is a coefficient as well because it's a number used to multiply a variable. So I have a coefficient and a factor, or I could say I have 2 factors, 3 and y. A constant is just a fixed value or just a number. So sometimes you'll hear me use the word constant, and constant just means a number by itself. As I mentioned before, there is no reason to memorize these, but I did want to mention the words to you since you will be hearing me use these words throughout this module and the next one. In order to add and subtract terms, the terms have to have identical variables. For instance, you can add together 3a plus 2a. 3a plus 2a is equal to 5a. And I oftentimes think about this as something like 3 apples plus 2 apples, which you can certainly put together and get 5 apples. However, I can't add together 3a plus 2b because the variables are not the same. I tend to think about this as 3 apples plus 2 bananas, which I cannot add together unless I wanted to use something like a blender or something. But 3a plus 2b just needs to stay that way, 3a plus 2b. One other thing I would like to mention here is to remember that a single variable by itself, for instance x, if I had something like x plus x, there is an understood coefficient of 1 in front of both of these x's. So if I have x plus x, I could think about that as 1x plus 1x, which is equal to 2x. Oftentimes, when adding and subtracting terms, the identical terms will not be together. And here is an example. You can see that I have some identical terms. I have 5a, 4a, but then the subtract 7a is not right next to it. I can still go through and just add and subtract. The 5a plus the 4a is equal to 9a. And then it says subtract 7a. This is very important because the operation sign in front of the term is what tells you to do with that particular term. So as I say, I have 5a plus 4a, subtract 7a, which gives me 2a. I also need to combine my b's. And in this particular case, I have a negative 3b because the operation sign in front of that particular term is a subtraction, which really tells me that that is a negative 3b. So I have negative 3b plus 2b, which is a negative b. So I could write that as either 2a subtract b, or since it's a negative b, if I wanted to, I could say it's plus a negative b. Remember that subtracting a number is the same thing as adding the opposite. And although this could be written both ways, most of the time you would see it written as the 2a subtract b in that particular fashion rather than the 2a plus a negative b. Two other words that you will hear me use are monomial and polynomial. So let me just take a moment and talk about those. A monomial is when you just have one term. So for instance, something like 3x. 3x is a monomial. A polynomial is an expression having more than one term. So if you have something like 3a plus 4b, that is a polynomial because there are two different terms in it. There will be lots of times that you will have parentheses with algebraic expressions, and here is an example. And it's very important to note here that in between these two sets of parentheses I have an addition sign. As long as it's an addition sign in between the two sets of parentheses, in order to combine these, all you need to do is just rewrite without the parentheses, and then, as we did earlier, just go through and combine the like terms. So I have 2a plus 4a is equal to 6a. This is a 6b. And then I have 6b subtract 5b. Remember, the operation right in front of that term tells me what I need to do with that term. 6b subtract 5b gives me a plus 1b because it's a positive. So the answer to that would be 6a plus 1b. As I say, as long as there is an addition sign between the two sets of parentheses, all you need to do is just get rid of those parentheses and then combine the like terms. It is when subtracting with sets of parentheses that you have to pay particular attention. Because in this case, I want to subtract everything that is inside that set of parentheses. So if I wanted to simplify this expression, First of all, I have the 5a plus 3b, and I can just rewrite that the way it is and get rid of the parentheses. But then I want to subtract the 2a, and I also want to subtract the b, because I want to subtract everything that is inside that set of parentheses. Now, as I go through, now I can combine my like terms. I have 5a subtract 2a, which is equal to 3a, and I have a plus 3b, which I'm going to think of as a positive 3b, subtract b, which would give me plus 2b. This idea of having a subtraction sign in front of a set of parentheses is something to really pay particular attention to, and it's an area where I see a number of mistakes being made. So please pay attention to that area. Let me do another example of subtracting with polynomials. First of all, I am just going to get rid of the parentheses in the very first set of numbers that I have. So I just have 7a plus 3b. And then it says I want to subtract everything that is inside this second set. So I'm going to subtract the 2a, but since I want to subtract and subtract really means to add. So that second one is now going to be plus 4b. So you really do need to pay particular attention to that. Now I'm going to combine my terms. 7a subtract 2a is equal to 5a. 3b plus 4b is equal to 7b. As I said before, making mistakes with a subtraction sign in front of the parentheses is very common. So there is a set of rules you can use to make sure it is done properly. And I'll follow these 3 steps with the example that I have. First of all, I'm going to drop the parentheses in the first polynomial and rewrite the terms. So I just have 2x plus 4y. Second, I'm going to drop the parentheses in the second polynomial and keep the subtraction sign the same. I'm also going to keep the first and the second terms the same. So I keep the 3x the same, I keep the 5y the same. But I changed the operation sign that was in the second set of parentheses to its opposite. It was an addition, now I'm going to change it to a subtraction. Now I'm going to go through and I am going to combine my like terms. I have 2x subtract 3x, which gives me a negative x. I have a positive 4y subtract 5y, which gives me subtract y. Once again, I could write that instead as negative x plus a negative y. It doesn't matter, but you would most likely see it written in a book that particular way. Here's another example, and I'll use the same set of rules. First of all, I'll go through and I will drop the parentheses in the first polynomial and rewrite the terms that I have. So I have 6x subtract 3y. Then I'm going to drop the parentheses in the second polynomial, but I'm going to keep the subtraction sign the same. I'm going to keep both of the terms the same. So this is subtract 2x because that term is a negative 2x, and that is a 4y. And then I'm going to change the operation sign that was in the second set of parentheses to its opposite, so it's going to be a plus. So now I have this is exactly the same, and now I need to combine my like terms. Now, because this is a subtract and a subtract, I can think about that as addition. So I might want to go through and rewrite this as 6x subtract 3y plus 2x plus 4y. You can certainly go through and do that if you'd like to, and then combine these like terms. 6x plus 2x is 8x. I need to think of that as a negative 3y plus 4y, which would give me y. So the final answer would be 8x plus y. Let me do one more example before I have you do one on your own. And you'll notice that this example, it's a little bit different because I have a negative sign in front of the first set of parentheses. And if that's the case, I need to treat that first set of parentheses as I do in step number 2 here, because that negative sign applies to everything. So in order to do that, I am going to drop that set of parentheses, and it's going to be rewritten, but it's a negative 3x. The 4y stays the same, but the sign goes to its opposite. And then, after that, that subtraction sign stays the same. The first number stayed the same. The 2y stays the same, but that subtraction sign goes to its opposite and becomes an addition sign. Now I need to go through and combine my like terms. I have a negative 3x, subtract 6x, which is a negative 9x, and I have a positive 4y plus 2y, which gives me 6y for the answer. Here's one that I'd like you to do on your own. So if you would turn this off, do it on your own piece of paper, and then turn it back on again and check your answer. Okay, in order to do this problem, I'm going to drop the parentheses in the first polynomial and just rewrite the terms that I have. So I have 3x subtract 4y. I'm going to keep the subtraction sign the same. I'm also going to keep the terms in the second set the same, but I am going to take the opposite of the subtraction. I'm going to make it addition. So now I need to combine my like terms. So I have 3x subtract 5x, which gives me a negative 2x. I have a negative 4y plus y, which gives me a negative 3y, which I'm going to write as 2x subtract 3y. Once again, you could have an answer of a negative 2x plus a negative 3y if you'd like to, but you would probably see it written this particular way in a math book. Before going on to the next video in this module, I would like you to complete a quick check on this video, which can be found next. In it, you will find 5 quick problems that can be used to check your understanding. If you do well on the quick check, you are ready to watch the next video. If you have difficulty with it, you may want to review this video again, look at the different websites that are available on the topic that you can find in this module, or ask me for additional help. Thank you.